Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Extra Mile. It's a beautiful day here in Montclair, New Jersey. And today I am thrilled to be joined by my old friend, Wes Adams, someone who I've known and admired for over a decade. Wes just released a fantastic new book called Meaningful Work: How to Ignite Passion and Performance in Every Employee, co-authored with Tamara Miles, whose name we love because of the miles, obviously. It's already a #1 bestseller, and it couldn't be more timely. We're in the middle of one of the biggest shifts in the world of work in over a century: burnout, remote work, quiet quitting, you name it. And through it all, one thing remains constant: people want their work to matter. Wes and Tamara draw on years of research in positive psychology to show how leaders, and really anyone, can help create more meaning at work through what they call the 3 C's: community, contribution, and challenge. We thought this conversation would be especially relevant for those of you who are a part of a company team in our employee empowerment program. But of course, it's also meaningful for everyone in our community who wants to find and create more purpose in the work they do every day. So now, without any further ado, please turn up your volume and turn on your charity miles and come along for a walk or run with me and Wes Adams. Every mile matters.
You don't really know who you are or what you are until you put a really big challenge in front of you.
Fear is an asset and ally here to help you be magnificent.
This crazy, silly, stupid idea to run across the Sahara Desert.
You did make it this time, but you said if you didn't make it, you would try again and again.
Everybody's connected to nature, connected to music, to their families, and now we're going to build a world that doesn't have racism and war and starving kids.
I kept telling myself, run at it, and just keep smiling.
Wes, thank you very much for taking the time today. It's great to see you as always.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I can't remember, how did we meet? Like, where did we met? You were still at All Out, but how did we actually get to meet? It's been a long time, like
Yeah,
over 14 or 15 years, maybe.
that is a great question. I think it was probably like 2010 or 2011, and I was working at Purpose, and we were launching All Out, and I think we connected. You were, I think, still at a law firm then, or you were housed
Probably, yeah.
somewhere, and you were really involved with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And I think we had originally connected because Purpose was maybe, or talking to somebody there about something that, supporting the organization. And then we kind of pulled you into being an All Out supporter. And I think that's how we originally started. And you remember you and I taught a Skillshare class.
I do remember that.
Like years and years ago on
Yeah.
how to structure a social enterprise, which was fun.
Yeah, that's all to say that we've known each other for a long time and have been friends for a long time, and I've admired you for a long time. So when I saw that you had written this book about meaningful work, I was like, what? Wes wrote a book? That's great. So, I guess it had been a couple years since we meaningfully connected.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you were doing this thing, writing a book. So I was really excited about it. And it's about a topic that I think makes a lot of sense for our community. The people who are part of Charity Miles all want to do something meaningful in the world. And we also work with a lot of companies who come to Charity Miles because they, want to have, a stronger culture at their company. So we work with a lot of companies where that's, they wouldn't come to us if they didn't value that. So I think that the companies that we work with and the people at those companies that we work with are in those leadership positions that I think that you're trying to reach. And everybody at Charity Miles in some way or another has some kind of work that they're doing. So I think that the topic here would be really
do.
great. Yeah. So I guess before we get into the book, let's start with your background and how you came to write this book.
Yeah. So I have a company called SV Consulting Group, and I do primarily leadership development and organizational design work. And my background's in positive psychology. So I'm also a researcher at the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania, where I got my master's. And just a brief primer on positive psychology for those that might not be familiar. If you
Yeah.
think about traditional psychology, like clinical psychology is what we usually think of when we say psychology, and that's mostly focused on navigating challenges, overcoming barriers, things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, those are sort of some of the things that are focused on there. And that's really important work, right? We need to remove roadblocks to our well-being, to move forward. And even if we're 100% successful at that, that just gets us to neutral. And neutral's not enough. It's not what we're after in our lives. It's not what we're after at work. We want to pursue our full potential. We want to achieve high well-being. We want to, work towards organizational excellence. And so positive psychology is the study of the behaviors, mindsets, practices, skills that enable us to, live our best lives, to do our best work, to achieve our full potential. So it's sort of the study of human thriving, essentially. And
Interesting.
what I focus on in particular in positive psychology is meaning at work. How do we find meaning in the work that we're doing every day? And specifically, what's the role that leaders in companies or organizations play in helping us find that meaning? Very often we're thinking, oh, like, how can I find a more meaningful job? There are a lot of books on that. There's a lot of stuff around, oh, what's my purpose and how do I find my purpose and how do I connect my work to that? And that's really great. And my colleague Tamara and I, who's the co-author of the book that just came out, which is called Meaningful Work: How to Ignite Passion and Performance in Every Employee, now available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And we were really interested to understand what's the role that leaders play in that. What's the impact that leaders play? And so we've been doing research for the last 5 years on that. And one of the things that we found was that leaders account for about half of how meaningful you find your work. So there's a huge, really a huge responsibility there, but also a huge opportunity for leaders to create more moments of meaning for people, which is really important because meaning is the upstream factor that drives the outcomes that we want, both individually as employees. We want well-being, we want to like our jobs, we want to feel like our work matters, but also organizationally, it's the thing that drives engagement, retention, productivity, performance, and it's even now very clearly tied to revenue, profit, and even stock price. So a really powerful upstream factor.
All right. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
Lot in there. I've got to, as always happens in these interviews, like I have like a whole bunch of questions. I don't know which one you want to take. So it'll be kind of like choose your own adventure.
I mean,
One question.
I find if we just start somewhere, we tend to
Yeah.
get to where we're going.
Well, I guess maybe the first question, what do you mean by leaders? Who's a leader?
So the way that I think about leaders is anyone with the ability to influence, motivate, or enable other people to do their work, right? And so managers and, people in the C-suite can be leaders, but you can also be a leader without any kind of formal authority, right? We've all worked with those people in our organizations who maybe weren't our boss or who maybe didn't have formal responsibility for a project, but were very influential in guiding the team and helping people get their work done. And so really, I think you can be a leader at any level. And also just because you're a manager doesn't necessarily make you a leader.
So then does that definition kind of render the definition meaningless? Like if anybody can, like, who are you really trying to speak to with this book?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it renders the definition meaningless because I think that you have to choose to be a leader. You have to invest in, motivating, empowering, influencing, inspiring other people, right? And that is what being a leader of people means. I think it helps to have formal authority for sure. And you can still exert leadership within your sphere of influence, whether or not you have that formal authority.
Because you said at the beginning, like, this isn't just like for anybody trying to find like meaning in their life and purpose in their life, but
Mhm.
for leaders at work. So anybody who wants to be a leader, regardless of their position in the hierarchy of the company, that
Mhm.
wants to take can become a leader if they want to influence in a positive way or a negative way, I guess. But
Yeah,
influence the culture around them.
I think that's well said. And this is about helping other people find meaning, right? Which is to say, it's not about focusing first on finding meaning for yourself. This is about
Uh,
how do you help people on your team find meaning.
uh, Interesting.
Yeah,
So how to help other people, not how to make your own work meaningful, but how to make work meaningful for the other people around you.
exactly. Yeah, which also happens to have the byproduct of being more
Right.
meaningful for yourself,
Right.
but that's not the primary focus of the book or the practices. Yeah.
So why should anybody want to make work meaningful for other people around?
Well, I think for a lot of the reasons that I just mentioned, because this is what drives the outcomes that we tend to want in an organization. You know, we want people to show up, to give their best work, to stick around. And, you know, we want to drive innovation, performance, creativity. And all of those things are outcomes of the belief that what we're doing matters,
Mm.
right? And so it's I would say, a high leverage leadership strategy for organizational growth and success.
Okay. Well, I think we should just probably take it for granted that anybody that would want to read this book is going to want their work to matter, work and the culture around them for the people that they're working with to find their work meaningful. So, what makes work meaningful? What makes work matter?
Yeah. So, you know, I think there's a very common misconception, especially when I start talking about meaningful work, that I'm talking about nonprofit work or
Right.
somebody that works in healthcare or something like that. And those, you know, definitely can be very meaningful jobs. But what we've learned over the last several years of research is that every job can be meaningful. Every job, every day can have moments of meaning, especially with the guidance of a great leader. And so, it doesn't have to be your life's calling. It doesn't have to be the thing that you were put on this earth to do for your work to feel worthwhile. And meaning, you know, those moments of meaning come from three main sources, and that's community, contribution, and challenge. And community is the sense that you belong, the belief that you can show up authentically and that your full self and your full ideas are valued. Contribution is the understanding of how your work positively impacts other people, whether that's your colleagues or clients, other stakeholders, and also understanding how your day-to-day work kind of ladders up to larger organizational goals. And the last one, challenge, is the individual opportunity to learn and grow and expand your capabilities, work towards your full potential. And so each of those three C's is an important component of meaningful work, and they sort of have a multiplier effect. So we want to look for all three of them.
How did you settle on those three C's, or how did you come to those three C's? Were there other C's or words with other letters that you didn't fit into that because they didn't start with C?
So there, you know, there was certainly, you know, a process of figuring out how to frame it in a way that would be accessible for folks, but
Right.
all of it's based on research that we've been doing for a number of years now. And so we actually started with qualitative research. We did Brene Brown style interviews, grounded theory methodology, where, you know, you interview a lot of people who are doing this really well. So we looked at high performing leaders at companies who are working to create meaning for their employees, and we took all of those interviews, and then from that we synthesized what were the common practices that were showing up, what were the things that these people were doing to create meaning. And so then we came up with a whole list of behaviors, leadership behaviors and organizational practices. And then we went through a very long and involved statistical process of quantifying that. So we surveyed thousands of people across 25 industries, and we looked at all of these different behaviors and how they impacted people's sense of meaning at work, also retention, performance, all of these other things. And then from that statistical process, those sort of shrunk down into 6 big categories, and we were able to fit those into the 3 C's to make them, kind of accessible.
So I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan,
I do.
and
Yeah.
he just came out with he's coming out with like a new box set called I think the Lost Tapes or the Lost Albums,
Mm,
which are like 72 something songs that
72.
that he never released,
Oh my
that
God.
were like at the cutting room floor for whatever reason.
How
So you can
excited are
imagine
you
for
about
oh yeah,
that?
it's like Nirvana
10
for
years of Christmases.
yeah. So these are songs that they could have been, on Born to Run or, Darkness in the, they could have been
Mhm.
huge songs, but they never, for whatever reason, didn't make it. And actually on one of his last albums, there's a song called If I Were the Priest. And he says like this song, I wrote 50 years ago, and for whatever reason, it never made any of my albums until now.
Wow.
And it's one of my favorite songs. So you wonder wow, there's all these things that made the cutting room floor. So when you came up with these 3 C's, I'm wondering, was there a 4th one that just didn't quite make the cut? If there other than community and challenge and what was the other one?
Contribution.
Contribution. Was
Yeah.
there a 4th one that maybe just didn't sound like the cutting room floor?
Well, there was one which we call in the book alignment. So this is
Okay.
about values alignment and leaders walking the talk, right? So, a lot of companies have their big mission statement and then values. We value teamwork and integrity and those other things. And then oftentimes people are behaving in ways that aren't aligned with those values, right? They're not walking the talk. And
Mhm.
that's something that we found was actually one of the quickest ways to destroy meaning at work, was to act in a way that's misaligned with values. And so it's that didn't really fit cleanly in
Starts
the
with
3
A.
C's. What? Yes, because it starts with A. Yeah. The 3 C's and the A.
Yeah.
But actually we pulled it out also because it's not something that adds a lot of value, but it's something that takes away if it's not there, if that makes sense, right? It's sort of table stakes, right? You have to walk your talk, otherwise the none of the rest of it matters. So
And I guess it's part of what makes culture too, right? The
mhm,
community. You're not going to have a very good culture if you're not behaving in alignment with your values. So
for sure.
interesting. So of those 3 C's, which is the C that you would start with?
I usually start in order because I think
Okay.
community is um, is really critical to lay the foundation for the others. Um, we're not very likely to show up and bring our full ideas to the table if we don't believe that our full selves are valued. And so I think having that environment where we have authentic connections with people, where we feel like we can be ourselves and, um, have relationships rather than transactions, is a really important place to start, especially now because we've actually seen a decline in community with post pandemic, with all the hybrid and remote work and sort of the rise of the way that we interface with each other through technology. We're on Slack, we're on Teams, whatever it is that you use. It can be a very transactional way to interact with people, and then we jump on a Zoom call and we get right down to business because we're busy. We got to get to the next thing and we're trying to get as much done as we can. And we never really get the chance to connect with our colleagues. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So what are some practices or things that companies do that are good at fostering community?
Yeah, I would say one of the folks that I really admire in this space is Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General of the US for some time. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
I do remember them.
Yeah, wrote a book about loneliness and issued some really great guidelines for workplace well-being, which included meaningful work, among other things. But just this idea that we're becoming more and more disconnected from each other was something that was of special interest to him. And so, one of the practices that he instituted when he was Surgeon General was this idea called the inside scoop. And so he would take 5 minutes at the beginning of every weekly team meeting, and someone would get a chance to either show a photograph or show like some object or something that they had in their space that was meaningful to them and tell a story about it. It's just like a little peek into someone's personal life. And it was an invitation for folks to bring a little bit of themselves into the conversation before the team got down to business. And that ended up being a really powerful way, not just to build relationships and good feelings among the people on the team, but also, he noticed that as a result of those deeper relationships, people were collaborating better across the organization. There was more connection, more cooperation. So, I think that's really powerful.
Is there like other than that one like specific implementation, is there like a general principle of that people might implement in other ways that you would
Yeah,
boil that down to?
for sure. One of the questions that we asked, one of the things that was on our survey when we were doing the research was asking people to agree with the statement, "My leader cares what's happening in my life outside of work." All right. And people who agreed with that statement were much more likely to feel a strong sense of community. And so, when I'm teaching this to folks in my consulting work, um, one of the things I tend to focus on is, just asking people what's happening in their life is an easy and really important thing to do. Like,
Mm.
Gene, like, what's happening? Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Like, what's
Yeah.
something good that happened over the weekend?
Right.
And then actually paying attention to the answer and engaging with it, and asking a few questions, showing interest. Is It's very simple. It's very easy to do, but we often forget, in the busyness of work, to actually engage with our team like they're people.
Mm. Well, and mm, but what if like people are like a little bit more private?
Sure, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to force people to tell to tell you what's happening. It's not an interrogation, it's just an invitation, right?
Right.
And so I think the offer is enough usually. And sometimes people may not want to tell you, or maybe sometimes, somebody's going through something hard and they don't want to talk about it, and they're simply
Mhm.
looking for some emotional acknowledgement, right? And that's okay too. But making that invitation communicates that you are interested in them outside of what they're providing to you in the current transaction.
Mm. I guess I'm also along the same lines thinking like there are some people that just want to come to work, get their work done, and get home in time to take their kid to soccer practice and get dinner and get
Hmm.
the kids' homework done. And like they're not necessarily looking for like extra work to do to, go to the softball game after work or the
Yeah.
5K. Hey, we got to do a work 5K on the weekend, but my kid's got a soccer game or something. So there's all these things that companies do to build community, but sometimes it's extra work for people,
Yeah.
and people don't really have the time for that because they've got a lot of stuff going on in their life outside of work that's very important. So how do you balance that, or how do you think about that?
I think that's a really great point. And I would say two things there. One, it's important to build this into the process of day to day work, right? If it's an add on, if we're asking
Mhm.
people to give more time, which takes away time from families or whatever, that can be really difficult, right? And so I
Mhm.
think like the inside scoop practice or whatever's happening day to day in the organization, we need to build that into the workday, that
Mhm.
opportunity for connection. And so that's one thing. And the second is, um, so these creating these opportunities to build connection, right? Sometimes like traditionally that's been like happy hour, or oh, let's go to an escape room,
Right.
or
Yeah.
like whatever that sort of like awkward forced team
Yeah.
building thing is. Um, we talk about this a little bit in the book, and there's like if you go to happy hour, what about the people that don't drink, right? Or it's
Right.
after work, what about the people that have to pick up their kids? Like you
Mhm.
are, it makes it difficult for people to participate. And so figuring out how to do some of these things during the regular workday helps. And we advocate for what we call a portfolio approach, right? So if you think about like sort of team gatherings on a purpose and difficulty matrix, right? So like
Okay.
you've got,
We got a matrix out now.
so if you think about, like a happy hour would be like pretty low difficulty and also pretty low purpose, right?
Hmm.
Um, Whereas, if you were running like a marathon with charity miles, that would be pretty high difficulty and pretty high purpose, right?
Right.
And so, like the higher difficulty, higher purpose things tend to build deeper relationships, but they're harder to organize, right? And so
Right.
you want to sort of, as a leader, be thinking about how can you create, things across a spectrum so that you have different opportunities for different people to prioritize. One of the things actually that we looked at that was really cool was this Swedish practice of synchronized coffee breaks. So in
Hmm.
Sweden, everybody takes a coffee break at the same time. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go when I get a chance. It's like everybody at 10:30 takes a coffee break. And that's very, low difficulty, low purpose, but it's an opportunity for everybody just to, hang out at the same time or connect with each other. Or if you're, on in a hybrid team, it's your time to like chit chat around the water cooler virtually. And that actually has been shown to create, a lot of connection and relationship just by happening to have free time at the same time.
It's like recess.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
They should do
Absolutely.
synchronized walking breaks,
I like a walking break. It's nice to
right?
get outside. Yeah.
Walking meetings. Any of these companies do walking meetings?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Walking meetings are great. I love a walking, like what you're doing right now, like
Yep.
we're I wish I had, pulled out my phone instead of been standing in front of my screen.
Well,
But
for the follow up podcast,
right.
we actually for a while. I don't know if you remember Lynette, but Lynette and I were working trying to make an app for walking meetings.
Oh really?
It didn't take off because like we couldn't really figure out like what the app should do to
Hmm.
facilitate walking meetings. But we talked with like hundreds of companies and they all liked the idea, just didn't know what to do as an app for it. But
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of walking meetings when possible, and a lot of the
I feel
companies
like
that we
with
work with do it.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're amazing. And I feel like with AI now, you've got Otter or
Yeah,
whatever you use, like if someone else is recording the notes
yeah,
and sending the follow-up, so you can just feel
exactly.
free to like be
You don't need to
engaged.
take notes.
Yeah.
That was the thing that came up was like a lot of the interviews that we would do. People were like, oh, I would do a walking meeting, but I need to take notes.
Hmm.
And then so Lynette and I were thinking, oh, well, maybe we should have the app take notes. But then all these other really good note taking apps came out. We're like, oh, we don't need to do that. They already got that covered. So
Yeah.
um,
Great idea though.
I like it. If anybody wants to work, do walking meetings, we highly encourage it. Okay, so that's community. Next one,
Next one's contribution. And so this is
contribution.
understanding how your work matters, how it positively impacts others or is contributing to a larger organizational goal. And so this is, kind of the bucket that most people think about when we talk about meaningful work. This is like the how,
Hmm.
how am I doing something that matters? Is it
Right.
this is where purpose comes in.
You're not
And
just like doing TPS reports all the
right,
right,
exactly. Like why does that matter?
right.
Like what's my work actually accomplishing? So there are a couple of different ways to activate this idea of contribution, right? And one of them, the more traditional way, is understanding how my work ladders up to something larger, right? If let's say, at Charity Miles, you're trying to, I think, do a couple of things, right? Like support great causes, and you're also encouraging people to get out, fitness,
Hmm.
health, those sorts of things. And so if I'm the person who's coding the Charity Miles app and I'm spending all day, sitting by myself in front of a computer writing code, how do
Hmm.
I understand how that impacts anyone? Like, why does it matter? Right. And so as a
Right.
leader, you, and I think you do a great job of this. How do you tell the story of like what's happening with the users and what it means and like what the money that users or people that use charity miles, like what is the money going to, and how is that positively impacting people that these nonprofits are serving, right? And so telling that story, connecting the dots for people, creating a clear line of sight between the day-to-day work and the larger impact that it's having is one big way that leaders can do that.
How do they do that? Obviously I do feel very fortunate about the work that we do with charity models, having that type of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
something bigger. But how do you, and you talked about how this isn't just for nonprofits and social enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think of an example before the call today. So I'm not like picking on any one company whatsoever, but like I was dropping my son off. It's spring break for him, and so we just have him going to like a little soccer camp here.
Mm.
I dropped him off at the soccer camp on Route 46, which Route 46 probably looks like what you think. It looks like what you think it looks like, and so um, right next to the indoor soccer place, there's like a hot dog restaurant.
Mm.
So like, okay, I like the hot dog restaurant, but like what, not to pick on them, but like what would be the larger purpose that you're like laddering up to there, or it doesn't have to be the hot dog restaurant, but a company that's not like a nonprofit, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that could be as simple as the person in the back who's making the hot dogs connecting with a customer who really liked them. Hey, this is a great hot dog. I really appreciated that, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a world-changing purpose, right?
Got it.
It can just be understanding that you had some kind of positive impact on another
someone's day.
person. Yeah, and often that's a customer. I think the other way that this happens a lot is from our colleagues, right? And through positive feedback, recognition from our colleagues. And this is something that's really underutilized in a lot of organizations, right? Just there's recent research, not ours, from Gallup and WorkHuman, that shows that one thank you once a week from a manager can cut disengagement and burnout in half, right? One thank you, and less than 40% of the people in that study felt like they were appropriately recognized for their work, right? And so just remembering to call out people for what they're doing well, to let them know, when they do something right, so that they can do more of those things, that they can feel like they accomplished something, that can really activate a sense of contribution as well. And that doesn't require any larger purpose or external impact, right? That's just believing that your work is appreciated.
How do you do that in a way where people, I don't know what the right way to say this is. So for example, Max, who by the way is 8 years old now,
That's amazing.
he gets very upset when I compliment him. He doesn't like me to compliment him for some
Why?
reason. I don't know. He really doesn't like it. And he's playing soccer. I'm like, oh, you did this really good. He's like, Dad, stop telling me. He gets really upset. Or if but I'm like, buddy, if I don't tell you, when you do something good, I'm not trying to like compliment you like effusively, but if I don't tell you when I think you do something good, then all I tell you is when you do something bad, that's not going to feel good. Right.
Yeah.
But he's like, but it doesn't sound like you really mean it. Or it doesn't, he thinks I'm like, just like patronizing him almost. I guess that's the word. It's like, so if you're going to be like the manager, like once a week, like sending my email to somebody or sending my Slack or going up to somebody, hey, just want to let you know that you did this really good this week. How do you do it in a way that doesn't sound patronizing and that it's like something that you scheduled into your week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that it's authentic, and you're not just checking a box, because we can always tell when someone's bullshitting us.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think at the same time, there's some really interesting research on this, that often we don't give people positive feedback or express gratitude because first of all, we think they already know. And second of all, we think it's going to be uncomfortable for them if we do it. Right. And that's one of the things that holds us back. And what the research shows is that that's actually not the case. They don't know. And it's actually more uncomfortable for us than it is for the person receiving the gratitude. Yeah. I mean, some people don't like to be, called out in public. And so maybe you choose to privately, give people their thank yous or their good jobs or whatever it is. But I can't think of many people I know that don't like hearing that they did a good job or what they did well, right? If they believe that it's genuine. I
Okay,
guess
so
I guess Max notwithstanding.
I've through Charity Miles and otherwise, I've gotten to know a lot of people in the military and in the veteran community, and they talk about task and purpose. So for like every task they have, they have to know what the purpose is. Like if they're gonna, take this position, like how does that like level up to the larger mission that everybody's doing? So I guess that contribution is making sure that people know how what they're doing is contributing to the larger.
Yeah, what's the why? What's
larger
the line of
goal.
sight between that task and the larger goal?
Interesting. Okay.
How do those TPS reports actually move the needle in a way that matters? Yeah.
Other than just thanking people when they do a good job, is there anything specific that you recommend for how leaders should be communicating that?
For sure. So, we have a model in the book called the BEST feedback model that's behavioral, explicit, strengths-based, and timely. And so, saying thank you or good job, it is indeed. But easy to remember because it's a fun acronym.
What was it?
BEST feedback.
Best. Okay, best feedback. Behavioral,
explicit, strengths-based, and timely. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we want to tell people exactly what they did that we're appreciating, right? So, instead of just, hey, Gene, good job, it's, Gene, I really appreciated that you went above and beyond last week by, sending a couple of extra emails to make sure that everybody understood their responsibilities for the project, right? And then explicit, what was the impact that had? Why was it a good thing, right? It really helped me, align around this project, and I know everybody else appreciated it as well. And as a result, we were able to get things done much more efficiently. Strengths-based is, it really showed, you were proactive and it showed a lot of passion for the work. And I really appreciate that. And then timely, you want to always be giving that feedback as soon as possible after the thing occurred. You don't want to hold on to those until the end of the year when we do our, annual reviews or whatever. This should be a continuous process.
How about in advance of the thing, before the thank you? Is there a framework for that?
Meaning like before the person did something?
Yeah. So like if I'm giving someone an assignment to like, other than just saying, this
like
is why I'm giving you
the old thank you in advance for,
or not even a thank you, so that they know why they're doing this thing that I'm asking them to do. Why? How does this ladder up?
Yeah, I think it's the what and the why. Yeah, when we are asking people to do something, it's like, here's what's on the agenda, and this is why it matters.
Got it. And then, so that's contribution, community contribution, and third
challenge. Challenge is the last one.
This is the one I really want to dig in with you on, because one of the things that I've learned in Charity Miles through people like BJ Fogg is that if there's something, people have enough challenges in life. The word challenges, like everybody's walking around with challenges that you have no idea about. And with Charity Miles, we try to make everything easy for people. So like, why does somebody want another challenge at work? Don't they have enough challenges already?
I mean, Gene, you got a lot going on in your life, right? Why you keep running marathons?
That's not a challenge for me. Like that's, I don't mean that it's a physical. I guess it's a physical challenge, but it's a way. That's like a way that I clear my head and feel good, and be with my friends and be outside. Like that's something enjoyable for me. I don't want another challenge.
Yeah.
Necessarily. This is just one side of the coin. But like, don't people have enough challenges? Why do you want to give them another challenge? Or what type of challenge makes a challenge like running a marathon and not just like another fucking challenge?
I think it's the opportunity it gives us to learn and grow. right?
Okay.
So there's no way for us to expand our capabilities without stretching ourselves, right? Without doing something new, doing something uncomfortable that's going to be challenging. It's going to potentially be a struggle. For me, for example, like
Say that again. There's no way for us to.
there's no way for us to learn and grow without stretching ourselves. Like growth requires struggle. It requires us to do something new, to um, you know, face difficulty, to navigate, mistakes and failures. This
Mhm.
is challenge.
Okay.
And so we need to be able to face those things to learn and grow. One of the things that I often do when I'm working with a new group of folks is to ask them to talk about one of the most meaningful moments of their career. What's something that happened at work that was really meaningful to you and has stuck with you or that you're proud of? And I would say 80 or 90% of the time, people talk about something that was really difficult. Oh man, I had to face this, like something happened at work and I was stuck in charge of it and I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. But I made it through and I really learned a lot as a result. And it was hard, but it was a really
Mm.
meaningful moment for me. Right.
Mm.
Those are the moments that tend to show up most often when I'm asking people, what is it that's meaningful or what's a meaningful moment at work for you? And this is where we expand our capabilities. It's how we reach our full potential is by pushing ourselves beyond our current limits, right? And the role that leaders play in that is by seeing those opportunities, giving us stretch assignments, pushing us a little bit, having high expectations, and also giving us the support that we need to do that effectively, right? I think the kind of challenges that you were talking about at the beginning is when somebody just like pushes us out of the nest and is like, hey, go do this thing and I'm not going to help you. Good luck with it. Right. And that feels like very stressful. That puts us in a zone of anxiety and is, something that leads to burnout in most
Mhm.
cases. Right. But if we are given a stretch assignment, but also supported by people around us, if we have the support we need to actually achieve that thing, that is both difficult, but also an opportunity to learn and grow. So that's what we're
Mm.
looking for, that balance of high expectations and high support.
High expectations, high support. Interesting. I'm just thinking back to my days as a lawyer
Mm,
and like what it was like at the law firm. Like,
yeah. Not known for being one of the most meaningful places to work, but but we can dig in if you want.
well, it doesn't have to just be that, but like, yeah, it kind of sound. I'm just trying to like really understand like what makes the challenge, because in a way it's almost circular. Like the challenge is worthwhile if the work is meaningful, right? If there's the community there,
Well, I think it's
if
the
I understand how it's contributing to the larger, if the other two C's are there, then the third C, the challenge of the work isn't gonna be like, oh, why the hell do I have to do this?
Well, I mean, I think that can help in the process, but I think the meaning that comes from challenge is often in the reflection on the work, right? So it's the once you've done this thing and you're able to look back on it, wow, that was really meaningful because I learned something or because I did something new that I
Mm.
didn't think I was able to do. So this is not about feeling good in the moment, right? Like this is
Yeah.
not oh, like this is going to be a great challenge and I'm just going to feel good about, everything that's happening
Hmm.
during this like crisis moment or this really difficult moment. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to
Hmm.
feel great and it's going to be worth it because you stretched yourself. You're closer to reaching your full potential and that's what's meaningful about it. So I think meaning is not the same as happiness or positive emotion, right? It's not about feeling good necessarily while you're doing it. It shouldn't be about feeling terrible while you're doing it, right? Like you don't want to be suffering, but you do want to be struggling because that
Okay.
means that you're pushing the limits of your capabilities.
Got it. And for the leader that is going to be giving these challenges to people,
Hmm.
how do you recommend doing that in a way where that they do feel struggling but supported.
Hmm.
Are there certain um, specific things that you want to have in place for that?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. So it's important to give people autonomy. You want to empower them to, in many cases, find their own way to get to where they're going. So
Mm.
I think we've all been in a situation where we're micromanaged, and that doesn't feel
Mhm.
good. And so we want to avoid that. Also, we don't just want to give people free reign, and
Mhm.
we don't want it to be the Wild West. And so what we found was what we call balanced autonomy. So this is empowering people within the bounds of organizational values, which is, again, why that alignment that we talked about earlier is so important, right? If you're very clear about what the values of the organization are and what the behaviors associated with those values are, then you can say, hey, here's the next thing that we need to do. Take a crack at figuring that out. Like, you have some guides and guardrails here, and I also want to support you, right? That's the
Mhm.
second piece of it. So um, I'm available to you as a resource. I can help coach you through this. I can make introductions to other resources for you. I'm here, and I want you to direct this process, right? I'm not going to tell you how to do it, which I think becomes more and more important as, we're entering a world where, like, tasks that we already know how to do, AI can do that, right? We need people who can think about how to innovate, how to come up with new ideas, because what's necessary tomorrow is going to be very different than what was necessary yesterday to succeed.
Mhm. Was there anything surprising in the process of writing this book that you didn't kind of have an inkling of beforehand?
I would say, well, I guess two things there. One, something that showed up in the research that I don't think we had really been expecting was the importance of recruiting and onboarding, and really
Okay.
setting the tone at the beginning of your professional relationship, which really impacts meaning across, the entire time someone is with a company. And
Mm.
so talking about mission, values, things like that during the recruiting process was a really important indicator of whether it was going to be a meaningful place to work for someone, and also the onboarding process. So, a lot of times you come on board with a new company, you get your computer, you do your paperwork, and then you're kind of like thrown into the fire to figure it out,
Mhm.
right? And companies that really invested in building relationships at the beginning, helping facilitate those authentic relationships that we talked about earlier. And also, another thing that we call cultural mastery. So, how are you kind of bringing people into the unique culture of the organization, telling stories about what that looks like so that you're really kind of bringing them into the fold quickly? That
Mm.
had a huge ripple effect, or, a huge effect down the line on people's sense of, how meaningful their work was day to day.
Mm. I'm very obsessed with onboarding,
Yeah.
but not from like that. I guess could be from that point of view, but with regards to charity miles.
But are you thinking about it when you hire someone new, doing the same? Are you as obsessed with bringing them into the fold of the company as you are with your customers, right? Because that's a very common thing. Like,
Mhm.
um, companies are so focused. What's the onboarding experience for our customers? How are we bringing them in? How are we making them advocates and
Mhm.
cheerleaders for this brand, right? And you should be thinking about your employees as much, if not more, in the same way. How are you investing in bringing those people in and, really plugging them into the community effectively?
That's great. Why was that surprising to you when you
I
came
guess
across
that,
that?
I mean, I don't know that it was, um, I mean, it makes sense, right? But
Mhm.
I don't think we had recognized the impact that it had, like
Mhm.
how important that was and what a big missed opportunity it was a lot of places. So I think it was something that stood out more than we might have expected.
Interesting. And I guess one other, I don't know if this is like it's not the flip side to that, but it kind of there's something like a tension between what you're talking about with onboarding and what I'm about to ask you,
Mm,
which is that I've also heard you talk about in some of your other podcasts about the book, the importance of frequency versus intensity.
mm,
So something like onboarding might be like intensity.
mm-hmm.
Like this is a very key moment to think about
Yeah.
with some intensity. But then, you know, big something that I really believe in is consistency is what matters. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I could go for like one run a month, like one really long, hard run a month, or if I do, you know, 5 miles a day easy, that's gonna have a much bigger impact than if I just do one really hard run a month. So
Yeah.
how do you think why is frequency and consistency more important than intensity? And then how do you what is the relationship with intensity? Because you do need those intense moments like onboarding or, you know, some
Mhm.
kind of key like the holidays or like key moments during the year where you do kind of tent pole.
For sure. I think both are absolutely important. So, um, we want these moments throughout our day or throughout our week to continue to remind us. I see those as if you're running a marathon, for example, those are like the gels that take
Mm,
every mile or something like that, to keep going. And
you're on the high carb plan.
Ri right. Whatever is in vogue at the moment, like, um and, then those big moments is like when you cross the finish line, right? Like there's that huge, like you cross it and I see all those pictures of you, with the metal in between your teeth when you finish. Like those are the intense moments. And when you're thinking about the next marathon, that's like the thing that you're thinking about. Man, that felt so good at the end,
Mhm,
right? Like that was such a meaningful thing. That's gonna get me going on the next one, right? But you still need those little moments as you're training and as you're running the marathon,
mhm.
to keep you going. So both are definitely important.
Um, what what do you I guess like what do you with regards to frequency and consistency, how can because we're all like on autopilot,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to remember all these like frequent little things. Like how do you recommend that people, regardless of their leadership position,
Mhm.
integrate these little kind of mindful moments into their day and into their week?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
mean,
something
I
that you
think
put on your calendar? Is it like a Slack reminder that you put in? Like how are you making sure that you get these little moments in?
I think it can be really overwhelming, this idea of like, oh, I need to create more meaning at work for people on my team, and there's all
Right.
these the 3 C's, and I've got to be doing all of these things, and like
Right.
that's just too much. Like that's too
Yeah.
overwhelming. And so, I recommend that people start small. Pick one thing, like whether it's just asking a few people this week, hey, what's going on outside of work for you? Like what's
Hmm.
happening in your life? Catch me up, right? And just invest in that and see how it goes until that becomes a little bit more of a regular practice for you, until it feels comfortable. And then you can add something else in. Maybe that's a moment of reflection, during the team meeting on, hey, I just want you guys to remember, like, this project matters because we're trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z, or it's impacting, this important group of people over here. Right.
Mm.
Um, and in those smaller moments, they add up, but it's like anything else, like trying it out, seeing how it goes, hopefully building it into a regular practice, and then you can add on another layer and another layer. You can't expect to jump in and just do all of these things at one time. I mean,
Right.
I've been studying this and, I teach it, for years, and I can't do all of those things. I'm constantly like, "Oh man, that was a missed opportunity," or um, even during the process of like writing this book, I was so busy, and it was a real stretch project for me.
Yeah.
I got really frustrated. I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard, all of those things. And I wasn't, at that point taking any of my own medicine. I wasn't
Right.
spending any time like taking a step back, thinking about why I'm doing this, you know,
Hmm.
making sure I was connecting with other people, like having genuine interactions with folks rather than sitting by myself all day in my apartment writing.
Right.
So yeah, it's not, nobody's going to be perfect. That's fine. That's just life. It's about, continuing to get out there and try to get a little bit better every day.
All right. That's excellent. Well, any calls to action? Where can people find the book? Where
Yeah.
can people find you?
You can go to the book website, which is www.makeworkmeaningful.com.
All right.
And there are links to all of the different places you can buy the book, and also a lot of free tools and resources, and even a meaning-driven leadership assessment, so you can see how you're doing currently on
Goodness.
each of the 3
An
C's.
assessment.
And I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram if you want to find me there.
All right. Well, we'll put those links in the notes. Wes, thank you very much. Hope
Awesome.
everyone out there is as inspired by Wes as I am. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Every mom matters. Wes, that was great. Thank you.
That was awesome. I appreciate how you challenged some of the things. You were like, yeah, but really, like, does that really work? That's one of the things I've always liked about you, is you're not willing to just take things at face value.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
There's a podcast that I listen to. It's so funny. Oh, there's two. One is called Maintenance Phase.
Maintenance Phase?
Yeah, and so that was when I started listening to first. And it's these two I think it's, well, you want to know something? I'm going to take a little diversion here. This is interesting. The second time that I met a transgender person was at your office with All Out.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was only the second time I had met a transgender person. The first time that I met a transgender person was shortly before that. No, within a year before that. I was at a political fundraiser for Al Franken.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not like a MAGA person.
Yeah.
Right? He was probably one of the most left people in Congress.
For sure. Yeah.
And there's a group of people, we were talking, and the senator was there, and we were in this group, and a trans woman came up and was like, I want to know what you're going to do for the trans community.
Mm-hmm.
And this group of left-leaning people, all of whom I'm sure have signs outside their house that say, in this house, we believe whatever.
Uh-huh.
And the senator were visibly, and myself, we were like visibly uncomfortable. We
Yeah.
had never, and he kind of blew off this trans person.
Yeah.
And then I also remember being in your office, and there was a trans woman there, and I'd said something to you after normal, something about and then what did normal people do? I was not unaccepting of this person, but I'd use the word normal for other people. You're like, well, that's not to say you educated me about it. I was like, yeah, that's obviously right. So I don't know what made me think of this, but I was just about to ask you something, and it was going to have pronouns, and I was checking myself on pronouns, and it brought up that memory of
oh, wow.
of that moment in your office.
Hopefully I did that gracefully.
You did.
Okay.
But actually, I'll tell you something else. You want to know something else that's really interesting? So my son is this park that I've been walking around. I used to play soccer in this park growing up, and my son is now at a soccer camp that is run by my high school coach.
Really?
Yeah.
Your high school coach is still coaching?
Well, no, he's not doing the coaching, but he owns the indoor facility. He's the kind of the grand poobah of soccer around here.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, we were one of the best soccer teams in the state. Our goalie was Tim Howard. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's the United States goalie for 2 World Cups.
Oh, wow.
He's one of the best goalies in the world. So we were the real thing.
Montclair, man, just churns them out.
I know. And I remember standing, because I was not that good, so I rode the bench. So all of my memories are on the bench. And I was on the bench. It was my senior year in 1997. I'm a liberal Northeast, Jew. And I'm sitting there on the bench, and Jamie Califano next to me. We are sitting there, and people did all the time. He's like, oh, that's so gay.
Uh-huh.
And Ashley, the coach, said, you shouldn't say that because you're implying that being gay is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time in my whole life that I ever thought of that. And I think of that when I think of Ashley, and he had educated me about that. But I took a tangent because I was going to ask you, and there was like a pronoun check that I was going to do. And now I've totally lost my train of thought. What was it? Shit. What were we talking about before?
I think I was saying I appreciated that you are like open to disagree,
Oh.
like you don't like just take things at face value and you challenge ideas. And
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't remember what
then I don't remember what came
Yeah.
after that.
Well, I wasn't trying to be too difficult and challenging the. Oh, that's what I was telling you about the podcast. So, maintenance phase. It's
Yeah, right.
it's a gay guy,
Mhm.
and the other person, I don't know if it's a trans woman or a trans man or
Mhm.
what. But anyway, they go through all of these, like, they just tear down all the popular diets, like paleo, keto, Peter T, like all the things.
Uh-huh.
It's like they just tear them down, and they're so funny. And then the guy, Michael, has another podcast called If Books Could Kill.
Okay.
And they basically go through all of like the airport books
Ah,
of like, and like tear them and tear those down. And they're really good. So like I
nice.
kind of had a little bit of that in my head because like I could see like this, I could see myself walking to the airport and seeing this like on the, like right, like all those books about business. I could totally see this being one of those books.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so I could totally see them doing an episode about this. I'll have to send this into them and
That
have
would be
them tear
amazing.
this down.
I would love for them to tear the book apart. That would be hilarious.
They're really I highly recommend. They're so funny.
I love If Books Could Kill.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's funny.
And they do like, like The Secret and
Mhm.
Girl Wash Your Face and like all these like.
Is that the name of a book? Girl Wash Your Face?
Oh, it's a huge one. It's this like influencer girl that like girl wash. It was like number one. It was like that and like Michelle Obama's book came out like the same week.
Really?
And it was like, yeah, it's huge. This girl, I can't remember her name. But there's like all these like, positive psychology books that
Mhm.
are out there. Or anyway, they're really interesting. I really like their books because there's a lot of these books are kind of like maybe not in this context, but they're kind of like, oh, if you only have like the 3 C's in your company, then you're gonna be great. But like, there's tons of companies that have the 3 C's that don't do that great,
Hmm.
or vice versa. So, or like, if you journal and wake up and do an ice bath and blah 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 blah, like you're taking control and manifest, like
Mm-hmm.
then
Then life's gonna be perfect.
life's gonna be perfect. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so annoying that it doesn't work that way, though.
I know, right? I ice bath I've been ice bathing since 2002.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And drinking pickle juice and doing all that stuff.
I know, but you haven't aged a day since the last
I know,
time I
right?
saw you. So
Seriously.
pickle
Well,
juice.
I'm excited
gross.
for you guys. Pickle juice it's not that bad. It helps a lot with cramping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the salt.
The salt and the vinegar something about the vinegar.
Mm.
So it's not just like the saltiness of it. Something
Yeah.
about the vinegar. But or it doesn't work and it's all like placebo effect.
Maybe
Yeah.
placebo effect is pretty cool, actually.
It is pretty cool. It does work.
Totally does. Yeah,
But yeah, you should check out If Books Could Kill.
I'm
It's
definitely.
hilarious.
I wrote it
They're
down.
hilarious. They're
It's on my
hilarious.
list. Yeah.
And the maintenance phase one is hilarious too.
I'll check it out for sure.
But well, I'm excited for you. Let us know how we can help.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If there's
Thanks for
anything
doing this.
like we're gonna send this out to like hundreds of companies. So hopefully
Awesome.
some of these companies buy like a big, shipment of them and give them out to all their employees.
That would be amazing.
So you guys are like you guys are like ranked on Amazon now, right? And you still number one bestseller?
I haven't looked today. It was like a #1 new release for the last couple of weeks, but
That's insane.
yeah, it's amazing. It's
How
amazing.
does that happen?
Just a lot of people buying books in a very
Yeah.
concentrated period of time, um, which is super exciting. And it was a next big idea club must read, which it was like
Wow.
big, like that's Adam Grant and Dan
Yeah.
Pink and stuff. Um, so that was really cool. And yeah, I mean, I hope it's been really amazing the last week or so. I've talked to a couple of people that have actually like read it, and been like, oh my God, this is like, I talked to one woman who like works at Bloomberg, and she was like, it's really like helped me like reignite passion for my own work. And I'm using some of the things, and like when I'm working with other people, I've been using some of the practices and they're like actually working. So it's been amazing to like actually see it out in the world. So that's been nice.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
And anything we can do to help. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do to help. You guys are already number one.
This is amazing.
But let me know.
Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Let us know. And next time you're up in New York, let me know.
Yeah. Let's do it for sure. Thanks.
Bye, Wes.
Bye.